a lot of us tell ourselves these stories and really believe it. And I said, I want to change this because I don't want this to be a continual generational trauma, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
for family for generations. And it's something that I noticed my mom would do to herself, and I needed to make it stop.
Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Alysse Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, babes. You know what I just sang in my head that is going to it's a nerdy joke, but I can't sing, but it was just like, let's talk about stress, baby. That's what this episode is about. I won't keep singing the song because I'm obviously not brown and I can't sing. And if you don't know that I was making fun of another song, then you need to get out into the 80s and 90s rap a little bit more. I'm just saying. Alysse Bobo is our guest today. She is so funny. We were introduced by Jessica Papanow, which you all know her from the pod. And I did not know that she was a Pilates instructor when I was introduced to her. What I knew is that she's a multifaceted person. She does improv and confidence coaching and all this amazing stuff. But more importantly, she goes into workplaces and she helps people with stress management. And don't we all need someone to help us manage our stress a little bit? So we get to go on a journey with her and hear how she got into that, and also the tools she uses to kind of have some awareness. And the good news is a lot of them are free. So you can try them out yourself, and then make sure you reach out to Alysse and let her know how they worked in your life. And also share this with a friend who needs it. Here is Alysse. All right, Be It Babe. This is going to be a really fun convo because today's guest and I have already had multiple conversations before, and she is super cool. It's one of those friendships where I totally missed a call, time zone problems, different things. I happen to be on this amazing person's podcast, but she was introduced by a mutual friend whom we all have loved, who's been on the podcast before. So Alysse Bobo, can you tell everyone who you are and what you rock at?
Yes. My name is Alysse Bobo, and I am a stress management consultant, but I also love, love, love Pilates. That was my first job post college. And I just love that Lesley and I can connect on that. And I still am very much so in the fitness world. So I'm very excited for this conversation.
I know. I love that you're not just a fitness trainer. You actually teach Pilates. You know what it is. You know all the things about it. But I guess why I want to start is, how do you go from a Pilates instructor to a stress management? I mean,
Yeah.
what? That feels like it's not a big leap. It makes sense. We get people in class all the time or distress cases, but what was the impetus? How did we do it?
Yeah. So, one thing is I was a stress ball. I was typical type A personality, Pilates trainer. I mean, counting the 100 all the time, you've got to have a little bit of type A to you. And, and so, counting aside, I found that I needed something different and my clients needed something extra. So, I started to study health and wellness coaching with the Integrative Institute of Nutrition. And I fell in love with all of the things in terms of talking about nutrition and then primary care, which is essentially like the typical going within, discovering what's going on inside of you. But for me, I was very much like my dad, and my dad got sick in 2016. So two things happened. I turned back to my love of Pilates and fell deeper in love with it. And then I also was on this self-healing journey because I had emotional eating issues similar to my father, and that came back to stress. So stress eventually was taking over my life. I wasn't able to eat. And then I was going the opposite direction from emotional eating to starvation. So I needed something different. And so I was vulnerable with my clients that, hey, I'm currently stressed and I need to pull back from my clients. And then I started my own company, Live Well, Enhance You, and found that working in corporate and with the masses actually my next step. in recovery from
Mm.
emotional eating and also starvation. So
Yeah.
it's been a whirlwind of an experience, but I'm really grateful that I did that
Yeah.
because I feel my relationship with fitness has changed too.
Yeah. I think it does usually when you start to like heal yourself, whatever kind of drew you into fitness, that does change how we teach. I feel like people are stressed out more than ever. And I feel like all we're told all the time is we have to manage our stress, which is
Yes.
stressful. And some of us get to work for ourselves, which you'd think would mean that you get to be less stressed out. It doesn't mean that at all. It means you then stress out more because you're like, oh my God, it all falls on my shoulders. You have gone into corporate world trying to work on stress. Can we just talk about maybe what stress is and what it even looks like? Because I also wonder if some people are so they've been stressed out for so long they don't realize they're stressed anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that stress is something that it builds up. I don't think it just happens. I feel it's something that builds up in your body and then travels to your brain and then it becomes out of whack.
Hmm.
And what we should be doing is analyzing that. If something is, let's say, oh, that food didn't agree with me, instead of just saying, oh, I think it was the food. Well, what happened that day? Kind of mentally take a note. Oh, I had that horrible meeting with the boss that's always on my case about whatever. And how can I get through that? Should I be talking to HR if it's a really bad situation? Or should I be talking to my boss and explaining, hey, I felt that something was off that day. Can we talk about it? It's just analyzing what's actually happening in your body. And
Mm.
a lot of times we just they'll brush it aside and then stress builds and it doesn't become acute anymore. It becomes something that continually happens. So
Yeah.
we have to make sure it doesn't become a habitual habit of this stress cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. And also, stress is interesting because there's good stress. There's stress that's really good. Like you stress your bones by dealing with your muscles, and that builds your bone strength. We also want to react when something really bad happens. We do want a shot of some cortisol and some dopamine to make a decision. But then there's that, like you said, that chronic stress where it's like you've turned the dial up on the stress and down. It's just always on. It's always
Yeah,
running. It's it's like idling there, and we start to make decisions from that, and that can become a problem.
right. 100%.
What are some signs that, obviously there's the we didn't agree with that meal, but what are some signs that maybe we might be under chronic stress or someone we know is?
Irritability, that's
Mm.
a huge one. You just see it on their face. You can also see it in their skin too. And that was something very apparent to me when my dad passed away. My skin was just horrible. And I
Mm.
never really had major breakouts with Pilates and all of the regimented routines, I guess, that I had. I always felt I was pretty healthy. And then as soon as that life changing trauma happened, my whole body went out of whack. But yeah, you can see it, you can feel it. And then you start to be the stress. I think that's the huge thing. You're
Mm.
everywhere, irritable with your friends, with your coworkers. And you just have to kind of take a step back and ask yourself, am I okay? Or my friend just told me that something isn't right, that I was really rude to her.
Mhm.
And instead of just automatically assuming them, also asking yourself, was that me too?
Yeah. Yeah, that self-awareness. Oh my God, so hard. Mm.
Yeah, it's very hard.
So you go from like teaching Pilates and like, trying to understand the stress you're under and how you're dealing with it and healing from that. And then you start to speak into corporations. Can we talk about that? Because that sounds really scary. I mean, teaching like 10 people in a room, not a big deal. But speaking in front of corporations, I feel like that could be that could be stressful.
Yes. And, I actually started that. Oh my gosh. I started that when I was working for a company where I was teaching a lot of Pilates and bar and cycling classes. It was a company. And so what they did was they would organize it. So it wasn't as scary in the sense I didn't have to go out and find the
Hmm.
companies. But speaking to a group of people that were told they must come to this meeting, is very scary because they're already coming into it with this anxiety or attitude. It's one of the two. Like, oh, they're going to tell me that I'm not eating right, or they're going to tell me that my posture sucks. Like,
Right.
I had to go in and I just had to basically make them feel at ease. And that usually was with some icebreakers. I'm very big into improvisation. So this whole yes and. So I would have to yes and myself into these corporations to make myself feel okay and ready.
Mm, that's interesting. I haven't thought about like a yes and in that way. That's really cool. Obviously, yes, people are forced to come to this meeting and they're going to be told something that they already know. What is your hope for them, or what do you hope that they come out with, and what changes are they hoping to make?
I hope there's just like one tiny little step that they take action on, whether that is that day or a month from that day, and just know that they can heal from whatever. It just takes a moment for them
Mhm.
to check in with themselves, and they can scan the list of things that I've given them to do, or given exercises, because I love teaching people breath work
Mhm.
is so key,
Yeah.
just like in Pilates or in personal training, because when we breathe, we just relax our shoulders a little bit more, right? So that's usually what I have to do, is
Mhm.
get them to just relax their bodies
Yeah.
first.
Breath work is one of our favorite things around here. It's like even just one intentional inhale and exhale is so, so good. I think it's just really, I find stress management interesting, an interesting thing to like do as like a thing, because by the time you're so stressed out that you're like, I need to manage this, I feel like it could be overwhelming. What were some of the things that you used to kind of help yourself? Because also you had to heal yourself to a place where you're like, okay, now I can talk about this and I can help people because I've been there. I also think, when we've been through it ourselves, we can become the best teachers because we can totally empathize with people and where they're at. So, what were some of the tools that you used to support yourself?
Yeah, so I didn't even realize I was doing this. I was creating a system for myself. And then in turn, I started to use this with my clients. But essentially, as cheesy as it sounds, I created a soul system. I wanted to enrich my life in the biggest way possible. And that was to engage my mind, optimize my body, and then my spirit, ignite it. Those were the
Mm,
3 things I really needed to do, because I was just feeling in every single area of life just completely depressed, that
mm,
being from like cooking at home to socializing, because I felt I was drinking all the time when my dad passed. So
mm,
I needed to do some major mindset shifts. And one thing that I did, and this is like the first thing I teach to companies, is create a sanctuary space. So
mm.
I would find a space in my home. And at the time, this was in my like Chicago Carrie Bradshaw little place. And I had my little woo woo corner where it was like my yoga mat, my foam roller, my keyboard, all the things that brought me joy. And then I would just take like a candle and I would light it, and I would be there for however long as my mind would let me. And
Mhm.
I would just either play the piano and just release tension that way, or it was just like breathing, setting an intention for that time, being present with myself. And by doing that and deciding not to scroll during that time or just setting my phone away, I was able to release a lot of tension in my body. And then I found myself going back to my old patterns of, teaching 10 hours and burning myself out.
Mhm.
So I would start to create mental oases where I could go and I could take that same energy I found in my sanctuary space, but maybe like 5 minutes before a class, I would just sit in a corner, as ridiculous as it would sound, going to a company and just sit in a corner. They probably looked at me like I was absolutely insane, but I'd sit there and I would just go to my favorite place, which was this amazing beach in Florida, just would visualize it, be reading and just relaxing and chilling.
Mhm.
And then I was ready to conquer the rest of my day. So
Mm.
just taking that time was so essential. That was like my very first step was
Mm.
the mindset piece.
Yeah, which is the hard part because if you're a type A
Mhm.
person, you're like, "Let me just, like, how do we action step this to to, you know, don't worry about the mind. I'll just how do I, like, just do stuff? Let me check a box. Let me do things." I love the idea of a sanctuary corner, and I love that you share that even in your small apartment, you found a way to have a little corner that could be the sanctuary space to kind of let the stress, it could be a space where it's just for you to explore the mind and explore what you need and explore what your body wants. So you live in Florida now. You've had a big
Yeah.
move. You also had a kid. How are you prioritizing yourself with your business and your podcast and the kiddo and all of those things?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that because this week fitness was not a priority because we drove from Georgia. Went on an amazing adventure, stayed at a cabin. It was amazing. Came back here, decided to drive back though, like those 10, 11 hours, not with a kid. She was great. And then on Monday, hell, I could not get anything done. It was so bad. And I learned my lesson. I was like, I can't do those things, or my husband and I can't do that anymore because she has to take that front seat.
Mm.
We have to prioritize her health for that. We're like, yeah, we could do it, but she did it. And clearly it was not good for her because 2 days later it was
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah. She needed the routine. Yeah, I think recognizing like, okay, this is what's going to take the back seat so that I can still prioritize things. But do you have other tools that you use to prioritize you that are not fitness related that help you kind of maybe not even not go crazy, but just to keep it from being stressful? It's just there's going to be stress in a
Yeah.
day. So we're not talking about no stress ever, but to kind of take care
Right.
of you.
Well, so I mean, I do always have my handy dandy notebook that I just write down my to-do list,
Mm.
and I just plan to get now the list done through the week. Instead of that day, I'm like, okay, this is when I want to do these things. I usually have everything Monday through Wednesday, and then they get done on Friday. And now I've been telling my brain, again, a mindset thing is it's okay. It's going to get done because you've made simple things for your brain to do throughout the week. I made sure on Monday I went on a walk. That was important to me. And even though she was crying in half of it, she went with me on the walk and there we go. So those little wins turn into big wins ultimately. But all jokes aside, I have also made sure that being present's the most important thing for myself. Because when I start to think or I look at what someone else is doing in my field and seeing how much they're achieving it faster than me, I'm
Mm.
like, you just had a kid. You're loving being a mom. You're really enjoying this time. And you know what? You've worked your butt off. Might as well enjoy this time because you might not get this time again in the future when she is in school.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know I just interviewed someone and they're like, "Yeah, well my 5-year-old's in school all day now, so I have more time." And so she's like, "So now I can do more things because I've got more time." And it's recognizing that there's just different seasons for that. And I think it is the mindset around it. There's different seasons. I love that you pointed out like I put things down and my goal is to finish it during the week and not necessarily the day because I think we can create extra stress that doesn't need to exist by going, "I
mhm.
have to get this done today." And it's like, "But it could get done tomorrow."
Yeah.
When there's more
And
time.
I feel like this was something I could have learned too before having her, though, right? Like, it didn't have to be everything on the certain day. I could have done something a week earlier. I could have done it a month
Mm,
earlier. And that's been actually a really good lesson for me too. So even when the seasons do start to open up for me, that doesn't mean I should go back to how I used to just burn myself out, rinse and repeat.
right, because 'cause it'd be so easy for us to fall back into our old habits when there's, like, big life
Mhm.
changes, to forget our tools. What are your favorite tools, for people to use when it comes to their stress management and their just even awareness of what's going on around them?
Yeah. So I would say one of my favorite ones is spiritual self-care.
Mm,
And it's that idea that I was just talking about, very simple, like being present. And then another thing in kind of the spirit realm is opening yourself up to opportunities. I feel a lot of times we close ourselves off from everything
mm,
because we tell ourselves in our brain that I can't do this, maybe because it's the time, maybe because it's you don't have the energy. But let's say you really wanted to learn a language, like what's really holding you back from doing it? Doesn't mean yes, time comes into play, but if you really want to learn something, you can make 10 minutes a day. And now they have all those fancy apps that just as an example that you can go and teach yourself a
mhm.
language.
Yeah.
So you can squash all of your negative thought patterns by just changing your story.
Yeah. We all have lots of stories that we tell ourselves. I don't have time.
Mhm.
It's going to cost too much money. I can't do that yet. I'll do it when I'm ready. When I'm ready is such a lie. How did you become aware of your stories though? Aware of of the self chatter? Because I think that that's like the key, right? So many people are so disconnected, mind and body, that they don't even recognize that they're stressed anymore. And then they don't even hear the loop that has been running for years on the story of like, I don't have time to learn this new thing, or I'm not smart enough to learn. How did you become more aware of the stories you were saying?
I heard what my friends were saying about themselves to me. And then I was
Mm,
like, oh crap. I say those same things about myself.
mm,
And it was more of that mirroring. And I realized, wow, well, a lot of us tell ourselves these stories and really believe it. And I said, I want to change this because I don't want this to be a continual generational trauma, if you will,
mhm.
for family for generations. And it's something that I noticed my mom would do to herself, and I needed to make it stop. It wasn't fair to myself. And it also wasn't fair to my clients, wasn't fair to my friends, and all the people around me.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think that's true. We hear the things our friends are saying. We're like, don't say that about yourself. And then it's like, wait a minute, I say that to myself and I just told her not to say it. So I better not say it. You know, we get so comfortable hearing that voice of our own and we defend others so much, but we won't always give ourselves that permission. And it's true, like people think that they're hiding their negative stories very, very well, but they're not. And your kids hear it and the people around you hear it. I was at a Pilates workshop last weekend and this one girl who's so strong. I look at her and I'm like, she's so much stronger than I am. And she's like, I don't know if I'll be good at this before she did the exercise. And I was like, okay, here she comes, prepping us for her amazingness. She's going to lower the bar so that she can. And I just kept saying that about her when she'd come up and she kept looking, like, why are you saying that? I'm like, because whatever, you just have these you have terrible stories. Every single
Yeah.
exercise, you are saying, I can't do this. Oh, I might not be strong enough for this. Oh, this. And so I'm just saying, I'm just making a joke that you are just making sure that we're all lowering our expectations so you can wow us. And she was like, "I do." And I'm like, "Always. And by the way, you
Always.
did this many years ago when we were together at another studio. You're still doing it."
And it's amazing for that person. It stuck all those years still. She still does it.
Mhm, mhm.
It's so
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And I think I spotted it because I remember in elementary school, I would have friends who would go, "Oh, I think I failed that test," and they get an A. Then I was like, "Oh, I think I did terrible on that test," and then I get an A. And I'm like, "Why do I always have to think I did so badly when I did fine? Why can't I just go, yeah, I actually think I aced that."
Right.
What, people aren't gonna like me because I actually think I did a good job? You know, that's what
Yeah.
weird people. That's weird.
Yeah. I remember doing that too, now that I think about it. I wonder why kids are taught that. It had to be something they learned from other kids or from their family.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's like there's that whole like don't brag. You gotta be humble. And I think that in some aspects, like it is really annoying when the little kid is just constantly bragging about all that they
That's
have
true.
around you. But at the same time, there's a happy medium. Now we just have a bunch of people who self-deprecate to a point of lack of confidence because they've told themselves a story so much. So I don't know. You're a mom. I'm sure you'll get that pressure to figure that out.
It's so true. Oh my gosh.
What are you excited about these days? What are you looking forward to? I know you got a little one, so it's probably hard to plan ahead, but what is it that you're the most looking forward to?
But Lesley, I'm still very type A. So before I had her, I planned too much for my fall. So I have a lot of crazy things going on this fall. I did create a course called Enrich Your Soul, and I did a beta trial in January and I fell in love with it. And
Mm.
then I created it just so it could be an evergreen course. I was like, why not? And then I actually teach some improv, and I'm going to be doing a 5-week series now in Delray. My husband actually found it. Love him for just being like, you should apply to this. And I was like, then we'll figure out who's watching the babe. But I got it, and I'm now going to be teaching teenagers improvisation in November. And then I'll also be teaching adults how to be more confident, not only in improv, but in life. So I'm really pumped about that as well. And
Okay.
then the last thing, I have my music stuff that I do. So
Yeah,
it's
because
always fun.
you're type A, multi-passionate, multi-hyphenated. Okay. So that is cool about the improv. That is so fun. I'm sure that just the idea of doing improv scares half of the listeners. They would just feel like they're not able to do it. But that leads me to like teaching adults confidence. Can we just like kind of dive in? Because I feel like there is a confidence issue amongst adults. It's a problem. And we have a lot of people who think that they are not qualified or capable of doing things. And this is not what you said, but this is just coming to my mind. 2 nights ago, my husband and I are sitting at the bar at a sushi restaurant. And the guy next to me is talking about, he's like, yeah, he's talking to his date or girlfriend or something. And she said, oh, how are the resumes going? He's like, well, got this job lead and they have all these requirements that I don't meet, but I applied anyways. And I was just like, this is the perfect example of dudes will have half or no qualifications and they apply anyways. He's on from my eavesdropping, you guys. He's on his 3rd fucking interview. And ladies, we're like, oh, I don't meet the requirements. I can't apply for that. So
Can't apply.
can't apply. So how do we? I mean, in a nutshell, in a few minutes, how do we get adult women to have more confidence in themselves?
It's so hard. It really is hard. That's a lot of my clients struggle with the confidence piece. They're too afraid to ask for that raise. They're too afraid to go in there and say, I'm going to take lead on this. I hate to say, it keeps coming back to asking yourself the tough questions like, where did this come from? Why am I saying I'm not enough? Where was this ultimately from? And some of it is childhood, yes, but a lot of the time it is that fear piece, fear of rejection, fear that if someone sees them not as perfect, then they are also going to be looked at differently by their
Mm,
peers. Like if they know that they're going for this job and they don't get it, what are my friends going to think? And I think that's more for women because socially, there's more of a judgment piece. And I think, especially with social media, how it's construed and showing your perfect reel all day long, it's really hard for women to
mhm,
gain that confidence piece. So they have to just start asking them, where did this come from?
mm.
And then it's the how. How can I get myself out of it? And maybe it is going to that improv class and taking an out of the box solution for yourself, right?
Mhm.
Or it could be just simply, I need to calm down my type A and do some Pilates.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those awareness of those questions are really good. I highly recommend. I took an improv class in high school and it is really fun. It is really, you can't be wrong. And that will
Yeah.
help you get out of your comfort zone in a big way. And it will help with confidence. I just interviewed a boudoir photographer and she's like, oh,
So
but it helps so many with her confidence. I'm like, that is amazing that they could go into that without the confidence, but they leave with it, like that they have that. So I do think that there's some exploring there, ladies, that we can all do to help each other out. Cause my
yeah.
goodness, the world would be a much different place if a lot of us were just a little more competent.
Yeah.
Imagine we would be leading different amazing rooms and really,
1,000.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
There probably would be a lot less stress. There would.
Yeah.
Well, here's why. Here's why it comes up to my mind. I was a runner, and it's actually really hard on the body to run slower than your pace. It's actually hard to run with a slower runner. It's a little easier to run with a runner who's a little faster than you. But your
Mhm.
pace, you have this pace that your body does. And when we all try to play small, it's actually really hard. It's harder on
Right.
you. It's stressful on you. It's frustrating. It's debilitating. It's all these things. And so owning your confidence and ditching those stories that aren't yours, it's kind of like getting yourself at your pace. I think that's really cool. Okay, Sarah, we're going to take a brief break and then we're going to come back and find out your beat action items. Sarah Alysse Bobo, where do you like to hang out? Where can people listen to more of your amazingness? How can they work with you?
Oh my gosh. Thank you. So you can go to my website, which is www.livewelenhanceyou.com, and just connect with me there, or go on the social media, Instagram, Sarah Alysse Coaching. And Alysse is spelled Alysse. I know there's so many different ways of
You
spelling
would
it.
think there wouldn't be on that one, but there are
There
actually
are
quite a few.
an I, an E, an A.
I've seen an
seen some
ELY.
crazy
Like I've
stuff.
seen so
Yeah.
many. So yeah.
Yeah. But I loved how my mom created it. So
Yeah.
it's perfect. And you can also, I'm on LinkedIn, Sarah Alysse Bobo. So just connect with me. Also, Lesley is on the pod. I have a podcast called Stress Free Solutions, S.O.U.L. So I love to have you join us there and listen to our conversation.
Yeah, it was a fun one. That was a good talk.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. You've given us a lot. It's been really fun, the different tools you've given us, but we want those bold, executable, intrinsic, or targeted steps people can take to be it till they see it. What do you have for us?
So in order to be it till you see it, you have to be your dream self and live in that dream self every single day. So I'm talking, if you want to be the CEO of a Pilates studio, then you have got to live that dream life. Like what every morning? Does she do feet and straps every morning? Does she make sure that she has everything organized in her studio? What is it that is going to move the needle forward? So just make sure that you're being it, dream it, live it every single day.
Yeah.
I know I repeated that, but I want to stress it.
Yeah. I think that's so important. You got to repeat it sometimes so people don't, they have to hear it often. They're like, hold on, I'm writing it down. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We're elder millennials. It's like when you say your phone number 2 times, even though it's on people's screen and they can just hit callback. But it's like that. That's what it makes me think of. I love that, Sarah Alysse. I think clearly it's something that you have been practicing because no one gets to do all these amazing things you're excited to do and be a new mom unless you weren't working backwards from the woman you want to be. So thank you for being an example, and thank you for sharing who you are and all your amazing tips, you guys. Make sure you check out Sarah Alysse online. You can find her on LinkedIn, on socials, and tell her how these tools affected you. And send this to a friend who needs to hear it. Let's up-level all the people around us. It makes it a lot easier to hang out with a lot of people if they are ditching their stories and actually saying kind things about themselves. So share this with a friend who needs it. And until next time, be it till you see it.
That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of the Bloom Podcast Network. If you want to leave us a message or a question that we might read on another episode, you can text us at +1 310 905 5534 or send a DM on Instagram at BeItPod.
It's written, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Crowell.
It is transcribed, produced, and edited by the epic team at Disenyo.co.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to Melissa Solomon for creating our visuals.
Also to Angelina Herrico for adding all of our content to our website. And finally, to Meredith Root for keeping us all on point and on time.